Hello and welcome back to the Not Your Neurotypical Fitness podcast. And again, back with the guests, and not necessarily something that is purely directed to fitness, but what we are going to be chatting about is I'm sure there will be many overlaps in the realm of health, mentally, but something that this amazing lady, which I will let her introduce herself in a second, supports people with is all around ultimately helping people, and especially women, high functioning women with ADHD, thrive. And thrive is one of the words that I use a lot, and not about just surviving with ADHD, but how can we leverage it to live our best life. And that's I'm going to let you explain what you do and how you work, but that is what you're about. So we are very much on the same wavelength. So Jen, if you
hmm
don't mind, just giving people a short introduction of who the hell you are, what is the work you do, and how do you support people with their ADHD brains?
Yeah, I love that, Lucy. I love Thrive. That is absolutely, I think we've been taught so much as ADHDers to like function, to like be like,
Mm,
here's how to function. And then there's this like feeling that it's like, well, can't we more than function? Like, can't we like be really great and like learn how to like not be exhausted all the time? So I love that framework. So for me, I'm Jen. You can find me anywhere on social media, Coach Jen T. Johnson, all the places. And I've been coaching women for 11 years, and probably the last 3 years more specifically with high functioning ADHD women. Because my journey as is not a typical one with the women that I work with. Most women are late diagnosed that I work with. For me, I was diagnosed in seventh grade when girls weren't diagnosed back in like the 90s. I won't age myself too much, but back in the 90s. And so for me, it was struggling with math. I went to a learning center to get tutoring. They gave me all of these tools for ADHD management, but never called it ADHD management. They were like, put your book out the night before, like, look at the week ahead, put your clothes out, all these things. And I was like a dog on a bone. So I did that for basically my entire life. I got a master's degree, I have a family, started a business, did all of that high functioning, but not realizing how much energy, how much extra energy us ADHDers take to actually be functioning. Like I just thought everything was hard, and like end of the day exhaustion was like, oh, that's just what we do, right? Because we're just like high functioning. And it's like, no, no, no. Like ADHDers use like 30 to 60% more battery to do the baseline functional things. No wonder we're so exhausted, right? So my coaching practice initially was in health and fitness. So I was doing weight loss coaching. I'm a certified personal trainer. I firmly believe in the basis of ADHD health as sleep, nutrition, movement, life flow. So it's a big part of what I believe in and what I preach with ADHD. Because if we don't have those running, as you know, like life is way harder, and so we want to make it easier for ourselves. And now I work with high functioning women specifically with that life flow piece. So helping them outside of work because they're crushing it with work, right? It's a very big dissonance of like, oh, I can crush it here, but I can't start a load of laundry, or I can hit the deadline and get the promotion, but I'm not able to regularly like feed myself. What's happening here? And so that's really where I work with women functionally. But yeah, I have a master's in education, a certified personal trainer. I have an advanced life coaching certification. So it's really holistic coaching, but really with that focus on like, why can't we do what we do and how do we do it more easily? That understanding as well as that like action piece. So
100%.
that's been a little bit. I'm in Minnesota. I have a dog, a doodle named Marley. You might hear her snoring in the background. A 12-year-old kid, and so married 14 years. Kind of living that like traditional suburban life. I have the minivan, all the things.
Oh, of
So the
course.
doodle minivan kid, right?
Ticking all those boxes.
That's me. Yeah.
Amazing. So the reason as well that I really wanted to get you on is I really resonate with the high functioning side of it. And I think high functioning women, well, the high functioning anyone with neurodivergence are often missed a little bit because if you, and rightly so, if you are really, really, really struggling with, severe, almost learning difficulties when it comes to your ADHD or autism, you get a lot of support and you get a lot of noise and support. And I'm rightly against, I'm with that. I think it's amazing and
Yep.
needed. But a lot of people don't know, and this is where a lot of has come out recently with the ADHD diagnosis is actually these high
Mhm.
functioning women, because they have masked and functioned so well for so long, they haven't realized, well, actually, all of these struggles I'm having is down to that. So, and it's quite a
Mhm.
hard thing to describe, but how would you describe high functioning ADHD? Like, what does that actually mean?
Yeah, I think it's the women that are kind of that have been told their whole lives, like, well, you can't have ADHD because, and it's like, and this like laundry list of like, because you have a successful business or you've gotten the degree, or you make it look easy. Like, what are you talking about? And I think that people don't see, or what they highly mask is the effort that it takes and everything behind the curtain that's kind of suffering, which most likely is their health, is their relationship with family, is their energy left over at the end of the day. But they're so in that forward facing like work piece with friends, with what people go to, they get shit done when there's external accountability, as we know with ADHD is like the thing, but internally they are struggling and they are exhausted, and it takes, again, the whole like laundry, can't feed themselves, all that kind of stuff. So I think the reason why we're missed is because that ADHD trope is still very much what we think of as like 7-year-old boy, right? The hyperactive running around and like can't, trail of papers behind him and all these things. And that's really what diagnostic criteria was on for so long. And so women in general weren't diagnosed. And then especially as women who are socialized to be sit down, be quiet, a lot of our symptoms go internal. And so a lot of my women are like, I don't have the hyperactivity. And I'm like, oh, wait, but like, tell me about your brain. Tell me about what's going on up here. Tell me about like the 10 tabs you have open and your hypervigilance and all these things. And they're like, I just internalized that because society says that I can't be a certain way as a woman. So yeah, I think that high functioning piece is super fascinating. And what I'm finding too, I mean, I'm in my mid 40s, and a lot of women are being late diagnosed, late 30s, early 40s, mid 40s because of the hormonal shift with perimenopause. So as estrogen starts to decline, we do see a connection with executive dysfunction getting harder and harder. And so also they are having aging parents, they have kids, they're at a point in their career where things are really stressful. So that intricate house of cards they had, they're like, oh, I can really function. I have my routine. I know what I need to do. All of that is kind of being shook. And the foundation is ADHD. And so that starts to come up towards the top of like, maybe something more is going on here. And that's why often they are later diagnosed, which like blew my mind when I learned about that. I was like, of course it's hormonal, right? Of course this is all like related. But yeah,
It's
that's the high functioning piece. It's fascinating, right?
it's really fascinating. And I know from like my own story with it, like the reason that I just didn't even consider, I mean, obviously there was not as much knowledge, a few years ago, but because I was so quote unquote high functioning, what I was doing is the things that I was finding hard is I was starting to create solutions for it without realizing that was what I was doing. And I think a lot of people also have that happen. So, for example, I am inherently very forgetful with things, but
Mhm.
I realized that. So I started to create little systems like writing everything down and emailing myself reminders and things like that, which I just thought was me being practical and pragmatic. But actually, like, no, you're actually really struggling with something and you're doing things about it. And like, I think a lot of people
Yeah.
have this as well, where they're creating solutions for themselves
Yes.
because they find it hard, but they don't realize that that's actually almost like masking. And then obviously, what's then happening as a domino effect is something under the surface, like you are starting to burn out, or you're doing X and you're doing Y and you're doing Z.
Hmm.
Another great
Hmm.
example for me was um a lot of the narrative around ADHD with like fitness is can't be consistent with routines, forgetting to
Hmm.
X, Y, and Z. And I was like, well, that's definitely not me because I'm a consistency queen when it comes to fitness. Look at me, I'm this PT. But
Yep.
what I actually realized was the only way I could be consistent was hyperfixating, making it my personality,
Yep.
obsessing to a
Yep.
disordered almost realm. Whereas if I
Yes.
tried to take it quite chill and naturally, I couldn't be consistent. So
Yes.
there's masking there.
Yes.
So there's so many ways that it shows up. Now, from your perspective, what are some of the biggest sort of challenges and issues? Because when we think high functioning, you might think, well, if they're high functioning, that's okay,
Mm.
like they're fine. But what are some of the issues that you see in your coaching service? Like, why does it exist? What's happening for these women who are high
Mhm.
functioning?
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, I want to go back to what you said really quick about the hyperfixation around health and fitness. I think that is so common in women. And anytime I see a woman who is like super hyperfixated on like can't miss a workout, can't slow down,
Mhm.
has to count the macros, or can't, if I can't scan the barcode, then like I think a lot of that honestly is neurodivergence. And I'm not a doctor and I can't diagnose that, but I think that is so common. And so when we see that in women, especially when they do have that consistency, but at what cost? So I
Yes.
think to the question you asked, that's the question, is at what cost? And we don't have a baseline. Like for me, it was just like, that's Tuesday. I didn't exactly what you said. I did not realize that this intricate system of extra work that I was doing to be functional was people don't do that. Like
Yeah.
neurotypical people don't, they can just remember things, or they see a big to do and their brain goes linear in that. But our brain's like, that's a pile. Forget that. Shut down. Instagram, here I come. Right. So I think that we don't realize it because high functioning women have just made this exactly what you called it, masking. And the reason why they don't get picked up with that is because of that, until they start realizing, oh, other people don't do that, or they have that burnout. So I think that's really, really crucial. But restate the question, because of course my ADHD took
Of
off. So what was
course,
that?
yeah. So it was about, obviously if them people might say like if they're if they're able to function, that's okay. But the reason obviously your coaching service exists is because, well, it's not okay, right? There's a
Yeah.
cost, like you said. So what are some of the costs mentally and physically that you're seeing? Why do people come to your service? Like what's actually happening for these high functioning people?
Yeah, the thing that I hear resonate with people over and over and over, and most of like literally all but one of my current clients has like seen like two or three of my reels, signed up. Like they're like very quick action takers. When they see it, they know it,
Yeah.
because they're not seen in traditional ADHD content, which is like the hot mess express and like set a Pomodoro timer and like
Oh
X, Y,
yeah.
all this stuff that we hear that's like very like, which is again functional for some people, but not for most. So they come to me saying, I feel really seen by your content. And my content is always focused on two things. One of them is that most high functioning ADHD women don't feel broken. They don't just have this like, oh my gosh, I'm so broken, like I can't end it up. They feel guilty because they can function so high in one area, and the other areas that really matter to them, right? Their health, their family, their friends, their hobbies, their downtime, they can't function.
Yes.
So it's not a brokenness, it's a guilt. And then when I say that to them, they're like, that's exactly it. I've never heard it put that way. Because again, you see the ADHD and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm broken. I can't figure it out. No, it is very much an underlying sense of guilt. But it's hard because the veneer, the masking is so good that no one thinks to ask about them. No one thinks to go, are you okay? Like, how? No one does, because they're so good at that performance piece, right? So that's one reason why they come to me. And one of my biggest things that I say to people is like, if you feel guilty about it, most likely you're a high functioning ADHD, right? The second thing is skills. So you touched on it a little bit, where it's like, because we have executive dysfunction, we just don't have certain skills downloaded. And that's how, and I said it very intentionally, because that means that we can learn these things. So
Mm,
it's not like we're up shit's creek, like, oh, you have ADHD, sorry, like you're hosed. It's like, no, no, you have ADHD. Here's what you don't have downloaded. And let's learn that and practice that and find a way that works for you in a neurodivergent way, not in the neurotypical way that's fed to you. And so that's the second thing, is a lot of you come to me because of that framework, where I'm like, okay, you can't use the planner if you don't have the skill of prioritization and asking, when am I going to use the planner? Why am I using the planner? It takes a little bit of extra work for us to get there. And we can use the planner. We can hit the workouts as we know. We can eat the healthy food. We can get to bed on time. But all that is very skills based. So the
mm,
women that come to me really understand that. They're like, oh, I'm not broken. I feel guilty. And I can now be functional in a way once I learn these skills. It makes it so much easier. So,
mm. The guilt's a really interesting one as well. And I don't know if you've seen this, because this is kind of like my story is like I was functioning so well in because there's this problem as well in certain areas of my life. So if I think about the two ones that jump to mind, so when I was all in on my fitness, like living like a bodybuilder and like business, and my
mhm,
business was growing, and other areas of my
mhm,
life were slipping. But because I was getting so much validation, because you know being successful in business and making loads of money is seen as socially acceptable and very cool. Getting ripped and having
mhm.
abs is seen as disciplined and very cool. I was getting so
Yes.
much reinforcement. So actually, it was kind of keeping me stuck. And there was guilt, but there almost wasn't, because I was getting all of this validation, which was kind of actually keeping me trapped
Mhm.
in that sort of burnout. I don't know if that's something that you see, because I would definitely say at
Yes.
that point in my life, I didn't feel guilty that I wasn't seeing family. I didn't feel guilty because I was getting so much dopamine that I didn't
Yep.
realize at the time from people going, you're disciplined, you're this, oh my God, you're making all this money. Oh my God, look at your body. And that was keeping me trapped and burnt
Yes.
out.
Yeah, I think we get on that track, right? And there is that amount of validation where the women that come to me typically have ridden that train hard, and now the cracks are starting to show,
Yeah.
right? It's either a partner saying like, "Hey, you're never home," or they have an autoimmune disease that perks up because of all the stress they've been putting their body under, or something at work starts to slip because they can't hold it together because they had a family, or they are now wanting to dedicate time to building a business or something like that. So it is more of that, like they've ridden that train train with that validation, and they maybe feel guilty for feeling guilty. If that makes sense. Like they're like, it's
Yeah.
all good. Like I'm like crushing it at work and I'm getting the promotion. I'm making a ton of money. Like I'm like, presenting at the things, all the, and so I feel like I shouldn't feel this way. So there's like might be like a canary in the coal mine coming out being like, hey, like this isn't okay, but they can ignore it because of everything, the shiny, right? I don't know if you're familiar with the Enneagram, but a lot of my folks are Enneagram threes where they are just the performers. So the maskers, they love the validation, they live on the validation. And so the alarm bell has to get loud enough. It's always been there, right? Like they're not sleeping well, or they're over caffeinated, they're not feeding themselves, like they're ditching relationships. And the validation is feeding them until that gets louder, 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 louder. And then something happens. And they're like, oh my gosh, someone sees it. That names what I'm feeling, right? And so, yeah, I think it's that validation trap is so easy to help us mask that everything's okay. I got this. And it's like, do you? Like peek behind the curtain, do you?
Yeah. Now you were saying there that those, what eventually will happen is there will start to be cracks and problems. So what are like the consequences? Because, people can be in these situations and states for time and things feel okay, but then like you said, until it's not okay. So if these high
Mhm.
functioning women are like having this happen where they're burning out or they're not being able to live their life in, completely because they're letting things that are important to them slip, like family or relationships or health, what are like some of the consequences of that maybe you've seen in your practice, or that you tell people like, look, if we don't sort this out, this is what could happen to you? Like, what are those
Yeah.
consequences?
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to the relationship piece and their health piece,
Mhm.
where they either haven't had enough of pain, right? Sometimes we have to have a lot of pain to make change. Unfortunately, I'm definitely a hard-headed learner where I have to like learn the lesson 15 times. It has to get painful enough for me to be like sick of my own shit. And so I think that's kind of where these people fall, is they kind of just get sick of it. They're like, I thought that if I reached a certain thing, or I had this promotion, or I had this income, I would feel a certain way. And when they kind of slow down and have those very rare, quiet, slow moments, there is that voice in the back of their head that's like, for what? Like, this isn't fulfilling me anymore. And then that's when things I think start to get scary, because we've learned so much to like crush it here. This is what I do. This is where I get validation. And then if you start questioning that, and that kind of like little voice is like, hey, but like, what about like starting a family? What about playing time with your kid? What about like having a hobby? What about not monetizing everything, which is like wild ADHD? It's like, no, I can make a business out of it, right? So I think that's kind of where the cracks come in. Is there's this little voice. It's not typically like a big fall, but it's like a long time riding that train, and then you start running out of gas, and then the little voice comes in like, well, what about our health? Like, shouldn't we be going to bed? Maybe we shouldn't be chugging caffeine at 10 p.m. at night. Like, maybe I should be working on my body. Maybe I should work on my family. So it's kind of like that little voice comes in, and then they have the realizations of like, oh, they put it together. I've been using this as a way to mask and to be validated. If that doesn't matter anymore, who am I? And now how can I figure that out in a safe place, right? Because they still have to mask. They have like a big old like wall of certificates to like prove themselves to.
Yeah, for sure. So it's gonna come out in something that's important, whether it's like a health
Yes.
consequence, whether it's a relationship, and like you said, eventually it might have to be that, like, and I definitely can relate to that. I see the pink flags, but it's when you get that, I call like a big bitch slap in the face. It's like, do something about this now. That's
Yes.
a motivator, but actually that's it. You can see that as like annoying, of like, well, shouldn't we listen to the pink flags? But we know that the more important and
Mhm.
meaningful something is to a neurodivergent brain, the more it motivates us. So like a really good example was when I was in the pits of like, hyperfixating on fitness, I had some hormonal
Mhm.
issues, and I wasn't having a proper menstrual
Mm.
cycle. And I was like, yeah, I definitely need to get this sorted and stuff. And then eventually I went to a gynecologist, and this gynecologist, I mean, it turns out everything she said was wrong, but at the time she's just said to me something like, you're never going to be able to have kids because of what
Mm.
you've done to your body. And I
Mm.
just remember in that moment almost having this, like, it was almost like my brain just like flipped on its head. And I was like, shit, I really need to do something about this.
Oh,
Oh my God.
yeah.
Because it was so powerful to me. So I
Yes.
definitely see that with people for sure. Now, in
I
terms
think
of
that's
obviously,
right though. I mean, I
yeah,
think that you're right with the whole why thing. And I know that you understand this, that like the why has to be important enough to the person and sometimes has to be like novel enough, right? We love novelty.
Oh yeah.
So, someone else might have come in that office and been like, you can't have kids. And they're like, well, okay, that's not that painful for me. Okay. Or like you can give like a laundry list of things. Like when I talk to my clients who are parents, especially, I'm like, you don't have to do it for your kids. Like that feels like something like actually it's like, I want to do it to break curses and like that might have some meat to it. But as a mom, we sometimes think I have to do it for my kids. Well, maybe that's wonderful on paper, but also like, does that matter to you? And will that get you long term? So I love hearing like your light bulb moment of like, hey, that was important enough to me to slow me down, to go, oh, and then make the change, right? Because sometimes you have to hear it 10 different ways, or there's 10 different whys, and like that's the reason why to motivate the change. And then that's kind of what you hold on to until it doesn't work, and then you pivot and then you find another one, but all of that. But I think that's a really beautiful example of that. Because I think those big things are like pink flags. I love that. I'm going to use that, pink flags.
Yeah. So obviously the work you do is all about helping people to function across the board, right? Live a
Mhm.
more balanced life, not feel like one area is amazing, but other areas are failing. So I'm quite interested to hear, like, practically, because I've done my own things to kind of have that quote unquote balance. But what happens in your coaching? Is it like every single person is completely different, or are there certain like tools and systems that you find quite universally are really beneficial for the people that you support?
Yeah. Well, you'll understand this as a business owner. It's challenging to market and to help people understand when you're like, I can help you with anything. That's not like a great way to market yourself because they're like, okay, I don't see myself in that, like moving on, right? But for me in general, the women that I work with, in terms of like on paper, they look very different. Like some are widowers, some are single with a kid, some are parents, some are in their late 50s, some are in their mid 20s. So like on paper, you wouldn't necessarily see like who are you going for here, Jen? But the people that I work with, the commonality between that is that they are high functioning, they're high achieving, and they understand the value of learning. They understand the value of investing in themselves because they know that they are the vehicle, whether it is for their health or their family, but also for their achievements. And so when they come to me, it really is that like that understanding of like this isn't tenable anymore. Like I can't keep doing this. Something is, again, the crack is showing somewhere. And so sometimes they come to me because it is a health issue. Sometimes it's a relationship issue. Sometimes it's life after divorce. Like who am I, what am I doing with my life? A lot of the times it is kind of that existential crisis of like, who am I? Like I've realized that these achievements and gold stars are starting to get tarnished, and like, who am I and who do I want to be? And for me, it's never about balance in like the traditional sense with them. It's
Mhm.
more so like what really matters to you and how can we help you prioritize that. So I always tell my clients, I'm like, if you don't give a shit about like folding laundry but you think you should, we're not folding laundry, right? We're going to find a functional laundry system so that you can get it done, check the box, and you feel good about it. And so that's really, specific example of laundry, but it's with anything, with their health, with their business, with their relationships, with the home rhythms, with the functional stuff like that. It's really more like, okay, what matters to you, and how can I now help you get the skills to make that functional? Does that make sense?
It does,
Okay.
100%. So it's like there isn't a system or a tool. It's very unique. Can you give me any examples? Because and I just know people listening will be really curious. Like, yeah, I hear this, but how does that look in
Yeah.
practice? Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
let's just say
Yes.
I came to you, and I was like, right, my business is doing really, really, really well, but my health is now dipping. I'm gaining weight and I'm not eating well. Where would we start? What would we do? Like, how does that actually
Yeah.
look practically?
Yeah, so we do, I mean, like structure with the program, it's a 4-month program called You Supported. And the first call that we do, well, they have like a giant intake form, which I know is not ADHD friendly. I've not figured out a better way to do it, but I'm always like, warn them, like, I know this is going to suck. I'm really sorry. I promise it gets easier from here. So giant intake form. And then we have a call where we really dive in deep. And one of my first questions is run me through your day from top to bottom.
Yeah.
What's a typical day? And again, I know we have like atypical days, but in general, like from when you wake up, what do you eat? Where are you moving your body? Where are we going? What time does work start? When does it end? Are there notifications on your phone? What's your relationship with social media? What does your nighttime routine look like? So I kind of get like a lay of the land with that to be like, what's going on here? And then from there, I start identifying what's the most painful thing. which sounds terrible, but like, what's the most like on to fire thing for you right now that we can really solve? So a couple of client examples I can give you. A client that I had previously who was a widower post divorce, she was trying to figure out kind of that new structure without having a second parent in her life. And so she's like, oh, how do I like manage with these kids? What are some routines? The house looks like a disaster. I don't have energy for my kids. So I think of like two different things of like time and energy are two very different things, right? You can have the time, but do you have the energy? And so I don't ever solve for time, I solve for energy. So I'm like, hey, you're making all these repetitive decisions like wacky. Like you're like, should I do the laundry? Should I not? What should I wear today? Should I do that? What am I eating today? And all that stuff might seem really micro, but it's more like, no, we got to like put that on autopilot, the predictable stuff on autopilot. So when the curveball happens, the kid gets sick, the meeting gets canceled, the whatever travel is delayed, you have space and time and energy for that. So a lot of what I do initially is that like deep diving into their actual, like, again, the traditional stuff, right? Like, what are you eating? When are you going to bed? Like, when are you doing laundry? All those things, and autopiling that in a functional way. And when I say autopilot, I don't mean the fucking, I'm sorry, can we swear on this? Is
Yes, we
that
can.
okay? Okay, perfect. I already did. I don't mean a chore chart. I don't mean like a color coded chore chart that you bought on Canva, right? I mean, like for you, what does functional laundry look like? And that's really where the one on one coaching comes in because I think so much ADHD advice, and it's hard. We have to put things out on social media. They have to be semi general, but when you hit the coaching board, it's like, why isn't that working for you and your family? Oh, your kids come in and they drop their socks and shoes all the way to their bedrooms. Okay, now let's put a hamper here. Let's see if that's functional. And then they go and they try it out. It works, it doesn't work, and we troubleshoot in coaching, right? Versus if you get that traditional advice and it's like, oh, do this, this, and this, and then it doesn't work for them, then they're like, well, I'm broken. Okay, 10 months later until it gets more painful, then I'll buy the next PDF. Repeat, repeat, repeat. Right. So I think that's the benefit. And like in coaching, when you're more hands-on with the client, you can like really troubleshoot with them. So that's clients have everything from, first of all, we always autopilot as much as we can, right? For me, I'm like, you run the dishwasher every night, you upload it, you unload it every morning. We're not debating with ourselves, is it full, is it not? You have regular laundry days, and we talk about, again, do you work from home? What does regular look like for the person, right? Not in general, not shoulds. We automate that. We do meal planning, and meal planning is not like the tiny glass containers with perfectly portioned macros, right? Meal planning is getting out of the moment. Like that could literally be the morning of, what are you having? What are you eating? What's in the pantry? Having like a little bit of a roadmap, right? So it's automating that stuff, getting the energy back. And then once we do that, then we can expand into like, hey, like you really want to start a business, or you want to knit more, or you want to like spend more time with your kids. Now we have the energy to do that versus like, oh, just set a timer, or oh, just whatever. Like they're not going to have the energy for it. So that's how the one-on-one coaching works. And I do find there's always like, some people do have like, oh, I got laundry, I eat regularly, I'm already moving my body, and I'm like, awesome, we got a few boxes ticked here. Let's work on the other ones, and then what do you want to do with your time and energy, and let's make it functional for you.
I love that. So it's almost like with your coaching, what you're doing is really getting to not just throwing a strategy or a solution, but understanding the underpinning of, but why is this a problem? And then let's create something for you. And I think that's the coaching done super well, because it's so easy to just tell everyone. Like for my clients, for some of them, it's like doing a weekly meal plan, on a Sunday night as a strategy will work great based on their dynamics. For some of them, hell to the no, that can't work. So we have to do something
Mm-hmm.
different. But as long as we get to the bottom of, there is something, like you said, functional there, that's automating things, making your life easier and allowing you to achieve the
Yes.
thing you want, great. And I do think
Yeah.
this is one of my problems, and I'm sure you agree with a lot of typical, I know, like I said, we do have to put things out there on social media, but content is, it kind of puts everyone into the same box of do
Yes.
this thing, do, and I'm like, but that, for some people that works great, for others that doesn't. And actually, even
Yeah.
though there are very common manifestations and projections of ADHD, there's actually so much diversity within that. Like the diversity within the
Yes.
neurodiversity is absolutely wild. Like some of my clients, for example, like me, will happily eat the same food every single day on repeat. Others
That's
are
sweet.
like, no, 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 I need some more novelty. I need some more this. So again,
Yes.
if I just said to everyone blanket, yeah, just eat the same three meals and snacks, and you'll never have to worry about like tracking because you're doing the same thing. But for some
Yep.
people, that will just lead to binging because they're so bored and understimulated. So you have
Yeah.
to work with the individual 100%.
Yeah. I think you really get it. And I think that that's like, as a business owner, that is the challenging piece of trying to make things that you can impact the most lives, but then also with like because sometimes that same thing, I'm like, yeah, like write out a meal plan. You can use prepackaged foods. Here's what you can do, but not for you, not for that person, because that person loves to cook and they actually do, and da 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 da
Yeah.
da, So there's a lot of that shame, I think, and that like that's a little bit of the deconditioning that we initially do in coaching. It's like, does that really matter to you? Like, whose voice is that in your head telling you you have to do it that way? Like, no, you don't have to work out every single day that way. Like, the goal is move your body. That might be 10 sit-ups today. Like what are we complicating it for? But ADHDers are very black and white, especially if you introduce autism into the picture, right? Where it's like black and white. Tell me what to do. I will do it. This is the way. And it's like introducing that like new concept of like you can make that the rules are literally all made up, all of them. So first we're going to say, what rules are you following? What expectations do you have that are not meant for you? And then let's make the new rules, and really adding in, for rules in general, I think of like, we can go like nutrition, right? We can go all the way to macros. I rarely, if ever, go that way with clients. Or we can go into like, eat whatever you want. Either way, you should have a meal plan, because then you're not making decisions in the moment. You have the groceries you need, you're good to go. So we can add a bunch of rules to help that structure, or we can have less rules and everyone kind of has their like Goldilocks spot where it's like just right. But ADHDers often go towards the most extreme. They're like, this is the right way, this is all the rules, and then they can't do it perfectly, so they stop. And
Yeah.
that again is a cycle of like, it's all made up. Like, if these rules aren't working for you, like, let's make some new rules, right?
I love that. And that kind of is like quite a nice sort of point that to kind of like wrap things up of any sort of like light bulb moments or thought processes or anything that you just want to leave people with. I mean, obviously we've really gone into there today about actually just like having acceptance that what might everyone says you should do, you might not need to do, and actually that you might need different things to other people. But is there anything else that you think is going to be really gold to leave people with today to help them if they are in this boat, maybe identifying that I am quite high functioning and I
Yeah.
am doing really well at something, but then these other things are dipping and I don't want to do that anymore. Like, where do people start? What do people do?
Yeah, yeah. I think kind of the big three pieces, you touched on it a little bit earlier, talking about the why really matters to ADHDers, and the why doesn't need to be, and usually isn't a traditional why, right? Like for the kids, for your bone health, like things like that. Maybe that works, but for most people it doesn't. And so I think that first piece is awareness, is like, why are you doing what are you doing? Why does that matter? Why in a neurotypical brain does that work? Why in a neurodivergent brain does that not work? That awareness piece, because I always tell my clients, I'm like, I don't ever want them to walk away saying, oh, because Coach Jen said so. I want them to know why they're doing what they're doing, and that the why really does matter to them. It's not because they should, right? Like, should you drink more water? Yes. My reason for drinking more water, it makes my skin look great. And I'm very vain that way, right? So it's like, that's my why. You could say, like, you're supposed to. And it's like, oh, it doesn't click, right? So I think that awareness piece is huge. The second piece is that action piece. And that's where the scale bank comes. And that's where having the skills of learning how to use a volume knob mentality, not a light switch. We're not doing it or not. I'm on or I'm off. I'm good or I'm bad. It's like, oh, the ideal workout is this. I can do a volume one day if it's a total, I'm not feeling good and whatever. And that looks like this, like learning how to fluctuate within those. And those are all skills that ADHDers can learn. Knowing the why is important, and then the skill bank, right? The action piece. And then what we do professionally is the coaching, right? The accountability. And the accountability doesn't need to be, I mean, of course, like come hire both of us, but it can also be, what is that external accountability? Is it a workout buddy? Is it hiring a coach? Is it your best friend? Is it texting someone? Is it even like, for me, it's making it up in my head sometimes at the gym that like people are watching me. And if I don't show up, they're going to know. They don't know. But in my head, that works for accountability, right? So it's really that first, that awareness, then the action piece, that skill bank building, and then the accountability to actually do it and keep doing it. And then, fuck it up, try again, do it badly, do it, still do it, right? And then hone it as you go.
I
So
love
that's what I would leave folks with. Remember, awareness is key. You got to know what you're doing and why you're doing it. Action, you can absolutely learn that through skill building, and then accountability, really making it stick.
I
That's the
love
three
it.
things.
Brilliant. And that is some gold
There you
to
go.
wrap things
There
up
you
with.
go.
So, just as a reminder, if any, I'll leave it all in the description of the podcast. But where can people find and connect with you if they have listened to this and they want to learn more from your content, maybe look into your programs, etc. Where can people find you?
Yeah, I'm all over. And I thankfully have just caught it all on Coach Jen T. Johnson, Johson. And everywhere. Really, I'm more on Instagram, TikTok a little bit here and there. And yeah, I have lots of things. I have a ADHD. Like this is what high functioning ADHD looks like a self-awareness checklist.
Amazing.
I have a digital guide, the ADHD manual we were never given, which talks about some of those skills, gives some of the really baseline,
Awesome.
most impactful skills that I teach in coaching, and then my you-supported one-on-one coaching program. I'd love to have y'all.
Amazing. Well, I will leave all those there to go check her out. Thank you so much for your time today. I definitely have taken loads of really cool stuff from that, so I know the listeners will as well.
Yay!
And for all the regular listeners, I will see you on the next episode.